At the briefing in the command center, we were told that it takes roughly 4 hours for the oil to make the journey from the mud bottom of the seafloor to the surface. The dispersants are being injected at the spewing point of the well. But the dispersants take only 2 hours to get to the surface. And there was speculation by Admiral Landry and others in the command center whether the dispersants really are having an effect upon the oil column as it rises to the top, if it's getting up there faster than the oil.
I think the problem is that we're dealing with speculation. We need some real answers. And not to know is not acceptable. We need to be able to access the water column, to go out and see for ourselves, both with remote systems, with cameras, if you will, and ideally to be able to go in small submersibles, go out to where the action is, go into the water column, observe what's happening, sample what's there. It's right now, because of the ignorance factor, it's easy to gloss over what actually may be happening.
Very sobering thoughts, and there are other questions I would like to explore with you, but I know you have to catch a flight. I'm going to ask Mr. Cow for any comments or questions he might have.
Dr. Earle, my concern, like yours, centers on the effect of the dispersants on the wildlife as well as on some of the species, as you said in your report. But as of right now, the only data that you actually have are the ones from the Exxon Valdez and none other?
Other information is available. It is not available to me as I speak here, but the role of dispersants across the board is to break the oil up into smaller pieces. Some of the chemicals used for this are more toxic than others, but none of them are exactly a recipe for good health for creatures who live in the sea.
You mentioned that we have to invest in inventing new deep water submersibles. How far are we if we were to invest money to develop such a vehicle that it can go down to the deepest part of the ocean floor?
The technology exists. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution deployed this past year, in 2009, a remotely operated system that went to full ocean depth, 7 miles down, on 9 different occasions. The cost of deploying it is expensive, and it is the only one in the world that exists. So the technology is there. There are no human-occupied systems that can go to full ocean depth, although the technology exists. It did exist 50 years ago. Consider where we were with aviation and space technologies 50 years ago as compared to where we are today with access to the sea for us and for our instruments, for our sensors. We've come a long way. But when an issue of this nature comes up, why do we not have off-the-shelf capability for the Coast Guard, for NOAA, and for others who might be able to not just go out and help with the evaluation of what is happening? How can we not know how much oil is being released? How can we not know the size of the problem? We're dealing from the surface to try to assess what is largely a subsurface issue. And what about tracking and following the aftermath? And where is the before evidence? Actually, investment has been made by scientists over the last half-century in trying to understand how many kinds of creatures live and where they live in the Gulf of Mexico and elsewhere. New volume just came out in 2009 that was the result of efforts by more than 100 scientists. They found well over 15,000 species of organisms living in the Gulf of Mexico. These are in a volume that is about 5 inches thick, and that has just been published by Texas A&M. And it is evidence of what's there, but we need some baseline data that very specifically looks at what was it like before the spill, what is it like now, what will it be like this time next year, this time 10 years from now, what can we learn from it, and what actions can be taken to restore health to the areas that have been affected. Not just compensation for the fishermen or for the loss of revenues to today's business operations throughout the Gulf of Mexico, but what about the loss to the Gulf itself that will be paid far down the line for future generations as well as present ones?
Thank you. Now you're back.